Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor, and today I'm going to be doing a book review on An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. So An Ember in the Ashes is about two main characters. One is Leia. I'm going to say her name is Leia because it's L-A-I-A, and in Greek, A-I makes an E sound, so we're going to go with Leia. Leia's a part of this group that is being oppressed by another group, and she lives with her grandparents and her brother, and they're just trying to keep themselves out of trouble, and they know the rules, and they don't want to overstep their boundaries, and there are these raids, and they're just trying to avoid being raided, and they don't want to rock the boat or anything like that. At the beginning of the book, her brother is accused of treason and is arrested, and then she, from there, is on a quest to save her brother and to break him out of jail, pretty much. To do this, she joins up with this rebel group and she agrees to become a spy for them, and that's where her storyline starts. The other main character is Elias, and Elias has been in this battling school for many years, and he does not like it, and he doesn't like the way that they go about doing things, and he doesn't like how cruel and brutal they are, and he wants to get out, but everyone that tries to get out ends up being caught and they end up being executed, so he is nervous about that, but he still wants to go on his own path and he doesn't want to be a part of this group anymore. The novel's told in first perspective by both of the characters, and every other chapter is told by the other person. So one chapter is by Elias, and then the next one's by Leia, and then the next one's by Elias, and it goes back and forth. I'll admit, I'll be the first to admit, when this first started being talked about and being hyped on BookTube and people started reading it and talking about it, it was promoted and kind of sold as a standalone, and I was like, oh man, fantasy standalone, awesome, and then it came out that it was not a standalone and it couldn't stand by itself and it was a part of a series, and I was like really butthurt about that. I really didn't want to read it. I thought I was just so mad about that whole situation. I just was not even going to pick this book up at all. It was just, nah. But then I went to YALLFest and I saw her on a panel talking about Harry Potter, and she was talking about how passionate she was about Harry Potter and how those type of fantasies and those type of worlds and stuff like that really inspired her to create her own books and to make her own stories. So I was like, you know what, you seem really nice. I'm gonna try out your book, because it was the publishers that really advertised this as a standalone when it's not. It's the first book in a series, not the author. So I ended up picking it up, and it is signed by her. She signed it with a little mask, which is cool. It actually has something to do with the story. I ended up really enjoying this book. The whole book is kind of based on ancient Rome and their style of ruling, their brutality and stuff like that. But I thought it was closer to kind of a Spartan type of civilization and culture. The school that Elias is a part of, the battling training school and stuff like that, are called masks, and they wear these silver masks that over time meld to their faces, like they get sunken into the skin, and so they're not removable anymore. But that whole situation of how that school is set up was very Spartan to me. The children start off there, and then at some point they're kicked out and they have to survive on their own by stealing and looting and all of that kind of thing, and they end up forming little tribes of these feral children, and then they can come back after a certain amount of time and keep going along and become citizens again of this little school thing. So yeah, it definitely had its ancient Greece influences as well as Roman. I think that's really what appealed to me the most. My favorite part about this book was definitely how brutal it was at the very beginning. Like, it was definitely used as kind of a hook to get you into the story and get you really involved and really attached, and then the brutality never lets up. It just keeps going, and terrible things keep happening over and over again. It just really keeps you reading, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. I feel like some books, they end up having this real brutal beginning, and then they lighten up a little bit, but this one kept it going. The writing of this book is kind of hit or miss for some people. It's definitely a lot slower than most YA fantasy that I've read. I think that's also having to do with the plot. Like, the plot wasn't super intense for a lot of the chapters, and so sometimes it seemed like the book was just kind of moving really slowly, but over time you get really invested, and I didn't really care that it moved slowly because I got more of the character's mindset and how they were interacting with this world and what they were thinking about those different situations that they were in. So I didn't really mind that it was a little bit slower, but if you really want those breakneck, fast-paced reads, this is not going to be for you. In terms of Elias and Leia as characters, I definitely enjoyed Elias's chapters and his storyline a lot more than Leia's storyline. Leia was a lot more introspective, and she had a lot more inner monologue, which was kind of a little bit boring for me after a while. I was just like, come on, do something already. But Elias was more interesting because he was kind of in this weird position that he was stuck in this situation and he wanted to get out, but he couldn't figure out how to do it, and I just really like that. There's actually a weird love square in this book. So Elias has 2 love interests and so does Leia. But the love interests, there's one that's just way stronger than the other one. So I didn't really think that it was a square. It was more just like they had their person that was their love interest, and then they had like this random person that they found attractive. And that was one of the things too that I saw people complaining about, was that they didn't really feel like the people in this type of world, this brutal world, would be that interested in love. And they would be pursuing those types of interests. But for me, that it didn't seem like they were love interests. It seemed to me that these people were just noticing other people. They were like, oh man, that person's really attractive. It was more of an infatuation and more of an attraction thing. And they didn't make any decisions based off their love interests until a lot later in the book, where they've had time to get attached to these other characters. So it was definitely not insta-love, although you know that they're interested in the other person, but it's a slower growing thing. It's not just, I'm gonna die for you type of thing. And I appreciated that aspect of the book, that the characters in this brutal world were not motivated by love. They were motivated by morals first, and then that whole situation came second. It was a secondary thing that if it aligned with what they wanted to do, cool. If it didn't, it wasn't gonna happen. So, you know, it was a good situation. I think that in this book, the magic system wasn't really explained that well. There's this like kind of magic metal that they use for the masks, and then they also have these augurs, which are kind of mysterious. You don't really know what's going on. I think another thing that could have been improved was the world building. It's very narrow in scope. You are really just at this one mask school thing. Like, you're just there, and you don't really get any other civilizations or cultures or anything like that. They don't have like religion really that I noticed. So I think that the world building could have used some work. I think in the future books that there will be a lot more world building, because I just think that that's the direction that the story is headed in. But for this one book, it's not that great. But as I said, overall, I really did enjoy this book. I was a big hater, but then I ended up being won over. I gave this book a 4 stars out of 5 stars, and I will definitely be continuing along with the series whenever the next one comes out. I definitely recommend it for people that like that brutal, that really violent vibe in their young adult books. And I think that's gonna be it. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you've read An Ember in the Ashes and you liked it, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. Keep it spoiler free, obviously. Or if you haven't read it, are you interested in reading it now? And I will talk to you guys next time.